I'm Visser, and this is my talk, Securing Your Cloud Automations. Nice to be here. Nice to be the last one of the day. I believe it has something to do with how fast you respond to the emails they send you, at what time you get scheduled, because I was a bit late with responding, I believe. I'm Visser. I work at OGD. I'm a cloud consultant and the product owner for automation and AI. I used to be an MVP. And I write sometimes on my blog, autosysops.com, about all kinds of automations and whatsoever. Can we just have a big applause for the sponsors? I haven't heard them enough being mentioned. And as far as I know, we can all enjoy our meal after this one due to the sponsors. So I think that's awesome. So, cloud automations. Why do we have cloud automations? Sometimes it is because we want to shift left tasks. As a platform engineer or a whatever, I don't like doing the simple things, so I like to shift them to more of the service desk people. If I can automate them, they can run it more easily. Or maybe I need to do some maintenance tasks. I think almost every talk we heard today, there was some kind of automation being made to do things. And it's nice to do this in the cloud, because I've got consumption-based billing. I don't have to have some machine running there to do this automation. It's spun up and then spun down. Of course, can do this on the Kubernetes cluster also. But it's nice in the cloud. And most of the time we have our Kubernetes cluster in the cloud anyways. And many of the platforms, they have all kinds of integrations. So doing it in the cloud gives me a lot of integrations. I'll be talking about Azure today mostly, because that's my specialty. But things would translate to AWS or GCP, or probably also some of the European cloud providers eventually. I believe they're still a bit behind on most of this stuff. So I'm going to do 3 different cases today with you. They're cases I've seen in practice, I've seen in the field. Sometimes it's things put together a little bit or made a little bit easier to understand, but yeah, I've seen these things happen. And this is one of the first ones I see a lot, that people start to automate it. It's often some kind of engineer or service desk employee, whoever, who just wants to make it a little bit quicker, do the work a little bit quicker. So they just take some kind of VM there is somewhere, some computer, write some scripts and just schedule the scripts to periodically run. Well, let's see how that works. Can you all read this? Is it okay to do it in light mode, or do people prefer dark mode? Fine? Okay. Last week I was giving a talk somewhere, and I was doing it in light mode for everyone, and the whole room started complaining I was not a real developer because I was working in light mode. So since then, I started checking again. So I've got here a script, I called it VM script. It's a very simple script. It will connect to Azure. It will take something from a table in a storage account, and it will just give back the result. But it will only give back the things which have been added in the last hour. This could be some kind of script which checks for incidents that have happened, tasks that need to be done, or whatever. So let's first add something to the table. So let's go to the table, and let's add an entry. Does anybody have a nice message? Somebody who wants to shout out something?
Hello from Seller.
Hello from?
ING Seller.
Yeah, let's just make it hello from ING. Okay, so that's added. Now I'm already connected to Azure, so I'm just going to only run this part. And if everything goes well and the internet works, yes, we've got the hello from ING. So this script that works We all know it works. It's very simple. And if I'm running this on like a virtual machine in Azure, I can use a managed identity for authentication. It's an entity I can create when creating any kind of resource almost, which allows for easier authentication. In the Connect AZ account I was using, I can easily connect. I don't have to worry about credentials. But this script, it doesn't really have logging. And what if the script fails? What's happening? This is a situation I've encountered often. And there's many ways to fix it. But some techniques you might be able to use are what I call using a check date or whatever. It's if the script retrieves, for example, the queries for the last hour of entries, and the script would fail at any point, and the next instance it will run, it missed 1 hour of entries. So what I like to do when building a script like this, and that's the resilient one, is I like to create some kind of variable. In this case, I called it the check date, and I store this somewhere. And this is when I last run this script. So at the end of the script, when everything was done, I stored a new value, like, oh, the time it is now, I store here. And then when I'm running the script, I just take everything since that date. So this way, even if my script fails in one way or another, I will still get all the entries. And you see there's some code added to interact with application insights, a tool in Azure to really make logging easier. So when we run this one, it should also work, and we should also get the hello from ING, because my check date was somewhere earlier when I run it today. This check date, it's stored here in a key vault. I just used a key vault because it's something I can really easily interact with, and most of the times I need to interact with the key vault anyways already. So storing a value here and then overriding it is quite simple. And the application inside, we can see that here it said the script was started. This was a couple of seconds ago. And then it said it got a threshold. So when did the script had to run? It got one result, and it set the new script threshold. So these entries are now just stored in application insight, and I can always look back at them. I can group them. I can add extra information to them. It's something you can very easily add to your script. I've seen many systems where they had some kind of text file where they write the logs to, and nobody really wanted to look at it. This way I can link it to Azure monitoring and so on, and make it a more resilient script. And the time is going so quick. So the next case is an Azure automation account. So this is often the next progression when companies start automating a little bit more. Instead of having some kind of VM they use for stuff and schedule a script on it, they start using actual dedicated tools for it. And in this case, an Azure automation account is a place where I can store a runbook, a script. I can schedule it, I can call it in different ways, and it will perform the tasks and log everything automatically for me. And it doesn't need any infrastructure on the back end. Microsoft will make sure that it will run. It probably uses some kind of Kubernetes cluster in the background to make sure that I have my resources available whenever I want to. So an Azure automation account you can very easily create. You get built by the second, I believe, your script runs. It might even be less than seconds. And you can create runbooks. You can create them in Python. You can create them in PowerShell. I believe they even have more languages available. We could check if we really want to. So it's only PowerShell and Python for this one, but we will see for some other ones later. And here you see I have this runbook. And what I did is I created a webhook. Because a thing I've seen a lot of the time is people having some kind of automation and they want to call it from some kind of dashboard, from some kind of portal they made. So using this webhook, they can very easily start the runbook. So I've written a small script here, which will start the runbook. And if I put word wrap on, is there somebody who sees a problem with this script?
If you expose the webhook, then everyone can call it.
Yes. For the people who didn't hear it, if I expose the webhook, everybody can call it. You could all now go to this URL and have my script also be run. It's not such a problem if it doesn't output anything and it's only something to get things. But say this is a script to turn off some kind of virtual machine. Maybe you want to protect it a little bit better, or at least make sure that this code is not somewhere in a repository. I've seen many of these kinds of webhook URLs in public repositories. I've also seen them being misused a lot of the times. So by now we've got a hello world output back. And if we go back to the jobs, we see that there was a job completed like a minute ago. I can go into the job, I can see the output, I can see all logs happening. So it does a lot of the work already for me. Like it can still use the managed identity, it does logging, only for 90 days. So if you want to preserve the logging even longer, you do need to store this logging somewhere else. It has options for this. But like we said, the secret is exposed. Of course, Key Vault can come to the rescue again. So this one is almost the same, but now I've got the secure webhook over here, and I just stored this webhook URL inside my Key Vault. So when running my script, it's not in there anymore. And I can run it, and I think you will all believe me when I say it will work. You do notice that it's waiting for job output. It does take a little while. I've had situations where companies use this for like creating users or whatever, and there was also runbooks calling runbooks, and it happened eventually that people were starting or pressing a button for run this automation, and then they could get some coffee and could get some cake and come back, and the automation was done, and it was blocking the whole portal they were using. So it's a nice thing, especially if you want to have something just running mostly on the background. But if you need something which works faster, then maybe Azure Functions is your solution. And I thought for a moment this was for the full half hour, but it's only for the 25 minutes. So actually I've got time. Wonderful. So Azure Function is often another step into our automation journey, where the Azure automation account, we got some code we can run, and it's all pretty much done for us. With the Azure Function, we got a bit more control. We can often do it a lot more with CI/CD. We can control a lot more how it gets triggered, how it connects with different things. I can have it interact with different kinds of systems and triggers. So I can create a function app. I made a consumption function app, which means that it I can only get billed when it actually gets used. This has the downside that sometimes I have a cold start, so it takes a couple of milliseconds to get my response back. And this function app has a lot of stuff. You can connect to it, and you can create a function, and when you create a function, there's like all kinds of templates, if the portal will eventually load, where you can also trigger. So I use the HTTP trigger for the one I made, but there's many different ways how you can have your automation start. And if we look at my thing, it already says here below, when I open it, connecting to application insights, it has a built-in debugger, kind of console. So when we're connected here now, it will show all the stuff it's doing. And one interesting thing is it has a function key. And when I was first working with this, I was like, function key, what does that mean? It's effectively just an API key. I can create more of them, I can renew it, and I need to give this function key when running the function. When I create a function, I can actually also say the authorization level, and the one I created is set on function. I can also set it on anonymous, then everybody can run it. But I prefer to have at least some control over it, not like with my webhook with the automation account. Although, again, if I would just take this URL, we still have the function key here in the URL. So I need to come up with a better way of doing this. I could do it again with the key vault, but we'll look in a moment. So I've got here also a parameter name. Let's make it SRE days. And let's run it. And it should give me back something like, hello SRE days. This is the HTTP trigger function executed successfully. It's just a hello world script. I literally just created the standard function and didn't change anything of it. You can create this also in a couple of minutes. So it has some very nice built-in things. If we go back to our, I didn't have it open at the moment, excuse me. If we would have been in here, and I can show it one more time because I have the time. And we call it again. And we go to the logs. It will normally show up, but because I don't want to run it again, but you can see logs appearing here when you run it. But if you missed it, for whatever reason, they will also appear here in my application insights, where I've got it's executed, it starts here with the request, and it gives me all kinds of information. So it's automatically connected to application insights, and it has built-in logging and tracing. I don't have to worry about that too much. So that's all nice and good. I've got control over the API key. It starts instantly. But there's sometimes a situation where I really want to limit the run to specific users. I want to make sure that somebody has to log in to actually run it. I could do this in the portal, have them log into the portal, do it, but I want to make this a bit more secure. Then I can use something which is called Azure API Management. It's been mentioned today before by Alexandro also. And with this, I can put a layer before my function app, which will do a JWT validation. So if I look at all my APIs here, by the way, setting up an API management like this sounds very complicated, but you can literally go to the function, to the function app, and just go here to the API management. And then there's a button that you can link it. There's now an unlink API management. You can just link it, you follow a small wizard, and it's instantly connected. You don't have to manage everything. Adding this JWT validation, this portal is not built for being zoomed in. JWT, JWT validation. This is a snippet you can add. This one is a little bit customized, but you can add this and add the right parameters. And what it does is it will check if there's a bearer token added to my request. And if not, it will instantly give me a 401 error, which it said, validation, field validation HTTP code. And it will also check if this bearer token contains specific claims. And if it does, I can run it. So if I would run this one without the headers, I get a 401 because I don't give the authorization. And what I do is I connect to Azure, I get my token and add it to the call. And when I run this, it works and it says hello world, because in here there's still the world, but now there's not the key in the URL anymore. And this way I can create an automation triggered by some kind of webhook. I could do this with an Azure automation account or with an Azure function, add some authentication to it, and make sure it works correctly. So, with that said, there's no solution which is perfect. Some tools work better for some automations. If you want to have an automation which can easily run on the background, just churning away very cheaply, an Azure automation account is perfect. There is some tools in there to manage your dependencies also, where with an Azure function you have to manage this a little bit more yourself. If you really like a bit more a high code approach where you can have it all in VS Code and edit it, an Azure function is very nice as a tool. But if you just need something very quickly which runs once a month, maybe just this script scheduled somewhere on the management server is also just fine. It doesn't always have to be fancy. But do keep in mind that whatever tool you use, it can fail. So make sure you put monitoring in place. Make sure you have this logging so you can see what failed, how it failed, and you can trigger stuff on this. And try to make sure that you make your automations in a way where you can retry it, where you can rerun it without things breaking. And don't be afraid to use multiple different systems together to achieve your goal. Too often I see people creating automations and they're so fixated on just Azure functions. It's like, I need to have everything in my Azure function. Sometimes this is because they have some kind of platform team and every new resource they request is a whole process with forms and so on. But feel free to use these multiple different systems because they all have their value. And with that being said, I think it says here 3, 2, 1, time. Are there any questions? And then I think it's his job again.
No questions? One question.
Thank you. A question more on the implementation rather than on the idea. I saw that you're keeping the check date in Key Vault.
Yeah.
Is that a secret to be kept there? And why not keep it in storage account?
There's many different places you can set it. You could even just store it in an environmental variable if you're running it on a machine. If you run it in different kinds of things, you want to store it somewhere differently. I just did it in Key Vault because PowerShell has very easy modules to connect with Key Vault. And like I said, a lot of the times I have to connect with Key Vault anyways already. So it's not per se a problem to store it there. It works. I've done it in the past and it works, and it's not like Key Vault complains about it. One nice thing about it is that Key Vault has versioning on their secrets. So you can also see all the different check dates which are added. So you can also roll back to a different one where some other things don't have this versioning added. But like you said, especially if you have bigger systems with multiple variables, storing it in a storage account or whatever works, and whatever other systems there are. This was just the easiest one for me to use.
Thank you.
Then thank you, Leo, for being here.
Yes.
Let's wrap it up for today also, as no one from SRE Day is here. So thank you all for coming, and yeah, let's enjoy the drinks in that room over there.